turned all the way up. I am Garlinda Price. I'm the CEO of Fusion Properties LLC, from the capital to the coast, your realtor for life, as well as Fusion Insurance Group. So many of you have been reaching out to me. If you follow me any length of time, you may be following me for different reasons on YouTube. And not that I'm anybody special, the Lord just told me to come over here on YouTube, right? And so you may have been following me for real estate, for insurance, or you may have been following me for statement making jewelry, right? And I haven't had a chance to make jewelry in the longest time, but as the Lord leads, it definitely is a desire of mine. Sometimes business just gets in the way. And so I want to encourage you on today to not despise small life insurance policies. One, I want to say that many of you, let's say first, you've been reaching out to me about the free insurance course. And so I no longer have access to a free insurance course, and I want to say that there's a disclaimer around that. I do have access to a extremely discounted life and health insurance course. You can take your life and health insurance license test in your state for $29, but I share that link with people that are going to be on my team. We use that as a team building incentive, and so I don't just give it out to the whole internet, and I think I wasn't clear on that when I shared it to the last time. I do write currently with Family First Life. I love Family First Life. I have nothing negative. I've not had any negative experiences. I have nothing bad to say about them. What I think is important to understand is that every team at Family First Life is different, and there are hundreds of teams at Family First Life. So when you see online that this team was bad, or this was bad, or that wasn't any good, you can't judge the whole. You got to judge it by your experience, or talk to someone that has had a good or great experience, and to tell you the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly about life and health insurance. And I'll tell you that because I'm gonna be honest, right? I don't like when people paint this whole glamorous picture, but they don't tell you the downside. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'll do that on a different day. I'm on here to tell you to not despise or underestimate for you and your family the value of small life insurance policies. I think the internet has glamorized, oh, get an IUL, get $100,000, get $1 million policy. And a lot of times people will get these policies, but then they can't afford them. Or they'll go to get the policy and their health doesn't afford them the opportunity to get the policy. Because I say this all the time, and I believe it, I live by it. In the insurance industry, you don't buy insurance, you qualify for insurance with your health, and your health allows you to invest in insurance, right? If you don't have great health, you can't get the best insurance policy, but you can get an insurance policy, right? And so about, I want to say 3 years ago, the Lord told me to take out an insurance policy on my mother-in-law, and I didn't. I was just thinking at the time, like, that's a random thought. I wasn't sure it was the Holy Spirit. I was thinking I needed sales. I wanted to make sales, and I didn't want it to be coming from a place of just greed in my own spirit. So I didn't listen to the voice of the Lord, and I didn't do it. A year later, she was diagnosed with cancer. Bone cancer or leukemia. I think it was it turned to bone cancer, but it was leukemia. 2 years later, now fast forward, last October, my mother-in-law died. My mother-in-law passed away from cancer. And the Lord was telling me at that time to prepare to get a policy on her because he knew she was going to die. Now, I didn't do it. Now, mind you, my father-in-law has had great insurance, so there was no problems there with burying her and stuff like that. But I wish I would have listened to the voice of the Lord, because what could that have done? That insurance could have helped my brother-in-laws. That insurance could have help my father-in-law maybe go ahead and retire early and not go back to work. Like $10,000, $5,000, $20,000, $15,000. We don't think about small insurance policies because all we hear people talking about online and on social media is buy the $1 million policy, buy the $100,000 policy. You don't need that, right? And I say that, I'm not saying you don't need it. Everybody doesn't need it. So another example is at the same time my mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer, my brother was battling his 5th cancer diagnosis. So he ended up passing away last January. So he died months before my mother-in-law. So he had insurance, but guess what? When he died, we didn't know where the policies were. We didn't know if he had insurance. We knew that he had gotten some on at his job because he worked for a really great company. Shout out to MetLife. When I tell you, they were incredible through that process of bereavement and handling his estate. It was just such a blessing, right? But we didn't know where any of his documentations was or were. We had to go through his home, hunting through file cabinets. And so my brother had lymphoma that then spread. So before it impacted his brain to the point that he couldn't communicate, he was able to say, go to the file cabinet in my office over here, and that's where you'll find my will. Well, the will wasn't notarized, right? So it's all these different things that come up. So we ended up finding out that he did have insurance, and what happened was that life insurance policy that he had ended up being pretty significant, right? So when he passed away, although that he had insurance, guess what you can do with a small insurance policy? Because my mom, he wanted to be cremated, so my mom and dad did not have to pay a lot of money to have him cremated. God rest his soul. But cremation can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, depending on who you go to, where you are in the country. So don't underestimate a small policy. If your desire is like, you know what, I just want to make sure my loved one has the proper burial. I want to make sure my loved one has the proper send off into eternity, right? You don't need these big policies that everybody's trying to promote, especially if it's something that you can't afford, right? And so think about an accidental only policy. So anyway, I say all that to say my brother passed away. The policy that he had at his job was enough for my parents to put a down payment on a new car that they needed. It was enough for my sister to make, because we split it 3 ways, it was enough for my sister to make renovations on her home that she needed and wanted. And it was enough for me to launch a business, right? So I want to share with you, when you say, well, you know what, I want to leave something to my family, but you may not have a lot of income. You may not have a lot of monthly income that you can invest in insurance. If you leave a $5,000 to $10,000 policy to your family member, and they don't need it to bury you, guess what that can do? They can use it to start a business. They can use it to invest in their child's education. They can use it to create an education fund for your grandchildren. You can leave a legacy and an inheritance if you don't need it for burial, right? Or it can offset your burial costs. And so you can work with a professional to plan your funeral, so that way the funeral home doesn't take all the money from your family member, because the minute that your family member goes down to Main Street Funeral Home, that's not a name, I'm just making it up in case there's a Main Street Funeral Home on here, and they go and say, hey, we have a $10,000, $20,000 policy, guess what they're going to do? They're going to max that policy out. But did you know you can order a coffin online? Who knew? I didn't know until my brother died. My mom ordered his urn online. My mom ordered the little baby urn to hold some of his ashes online on Amazon. So we can walk with you to tell you and show you how you can use a small policy to still achieve your goals, to still offset expenses for your family, to leave an inheritance for your family. Because a lot of people, I had somebody say to me one time that $10,000 in insurance wasn't a lot of money. I'm like, say that to the person left behind. $10,000 could cover mortgage payments for a year, depending on what the mortgage payment is. $10,000 could cover the cost of the rent for a year, depending on how much the rent is, right? Think about it. If someone's rent is $1,000 a month, that would cover 10 months of rental expenses. Last thing I'll share with you, again, I'm Garlinda Price, and I'm on Fusion Insurance Group, and we're just starting back in life and health, and I had put it on hold for a while because last year, I'm telling you, so many people passed away in our family. I just couldn't talk about insurance. I couldn't talk about death. I couldn't talk about moving on after a loved one passed away, because my brother had died, my mother-in-law had died, my husband's uncle, my best friend had died. It was too much, and so I couldn't entertain talking about insurance at the time. But I want you to know the value of it. Like, it has enabled us to start businesses. It's enabled us to make renovations on our properties. Small policies are valuable. So if all you can afford, if you find this video, if all you can afford for you and your family is $5,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, do that. Start there. You don't have to get caught up in social media insurance about needing $100,000, $200,000, $1 million policies. You don't need all that, okay? You need enough to have a great burial, if that's what you want, or a cremation, if that's what you want. But $10,000, let's say that most people, I'll end on this, that's what I was gonna say. Let's say you own a home, and you're like, well, the reason why you wanted $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 policy is to pay off the mortgage. First, you want to ask your loved one, are they even going to stay in the home after you pass away? I've talked to so many couples when I'm writing insurance policies, and I ask the husband, are you going to live here if the wife dies? Probably not. I asked the wife, are you going to stay here if the husband dies, especially if they're empty nesters? She's like, probably not. So all you need is a smaller policy to cover the cost of them not having to think about where the monthly expenses are going to come from in the event of a death. Right? Because that gives them time to grieve. That gives them time to think about what they're going to do. That gives them time to not have to worry about anything. See, when my brother Ooh, the Lord rebuke you. Not the Lord, Satan, the Lord rebuke you. I was going to say my husband. When my brother died, we were having to make the payment, the mortgage payment from his bank account. Thank God there was a little bit of money in there when he died, but we had to wait. It was probably 3 months before we realized and found out where his insurance was and that he had insurance. Imagine if we hadn't had the money to make his mortgage payment. We'd have had to let his house go, right? So instead, what happened was he had some money in his account, but guess what? My mom couldn't access all that money because she only had a power of attorney for while he was alive, right? She had a healthcare power of attorney and a general power of attorney, but she didn't have power of attorney after he passed away because she wasn't on his main account. She was on his savings account. So we were able to use the money that he had in the account to pay his bills, but had we known he had an insurance policy, we could have immediately cashed it in with the right company. Do you know that some companies you have to wait almost a year, 6 months? That's how people end up losing properties, losing land. So get a small policy, work with a reputable insurance broker. Let us help you put in place something small for you and your family just to start with. It doesn't have to be something big. I've gone longer than I wanted to go. I expected to be 10 minutes. We're at 11 minutes and I'm about to melt. But I just wanted to share with you, think about getting a small policy to start there. $5,000, $10,000, a $20,000 policy, maybe 30, whatever you can afford, start there so you have something in place. But you would be surprised what that money can do for your family. But guess what? You don't even have to die to use insurance. I had a friend that had a heart attack and they had a living benefits policy. And when they had a heart attack, I think the following day, maybe not the following day, but 2 days later that week, they had a check in the mail for $25,000. Why? Because they had paid for living benefits. So anyway, let's talk. 910-494-7798. God bless you guys. I hope you have an incredible weekend, but do not despise small policies. Small policies change lives. Small policies impact lives. Doesn't have to be gigantic, okay? I'm Garlinda Price. I own Fusion Insurance Group. I'm licensed and can help you in all 50 states, and I'm excited and blessed to do so. Okay, I'm gonna go find me some wipes for this face. God bless you.